You know, sometimes there are things that happen and then time passes, you process them, even then you still have a little trouble believing. Metroid Dread is one of those things. Just its existence. That's not even to mention the impact it's had. It's now multi-award winning, multi-million selling, and I'm still finding Metroid merchandise at Target. Try telling me that a couple years ago. Metroid Dread has just turned 1 year old, and I'm feeling nostalgic. Today, let's take a quick trip back to about 1 year ago today, when Samus Aran returned in the most shocking possible way. This is Metroid Dread 1 year later. You know, Nintendo making a new 2D Metroid is not a crazy concept. Metroid and Samus are a well-known franchise and character. The games are well-loved, and they belong to a popular genre. We really should have suspected that a game would come sooner rather than later. But let me set the scene of the Metroid landscape prior to 2021. The most recent release was Samus Returns, a 3DS remake of Metroid 2 that came in 2017. That's not too bad. It's not like the series was entirely dormant. But if we're talking brand new games like Metroid Dread, the well was as dry as Chozo Ruins. And for this, we have to go all the way back to 2002, nearly 2 decades ago. And over these decades, many started to question, did Nintendo just not see Metroid as a viable franchise for new games anymore? But even still, dormant game series are revived from time to time. And while I think we all had a little bit of hope for a new 2D Metroid someday, an almost 20-year wait is kinda discouraging. But just how long it took to come is only part of the reason why Metroid Dread's eventual reveal was so mind-blowing. What was even crazier? The name itself, Metroid Dread. Metroid Dread was the supposed name for Metroid 5 floating around the internet for, it seems like, as long as I've been into the series. It's what everyone was calling the rumored Nintendo DS-era Metroid game. That sequel to Fusion that, even as the years and console generations passed, just never seemed to find its way into the daylight. As a kid, I was Metroid obsessed, and I remember some of my earliest days on the internet were spent scouring IGN and message boards, trying to find out anything I could about Metroid Dread. There was a reason I knew this name. This was a real project. It was name-dropped in Nintendo publications, insiders and journalists were shown prototypes, and it was something I eagerly awaited playing one day. But as the DS console came and went, Metroid Dread became a ghost of the past. It became pretty clear that Dread was a scrapped project, and I fully believed and accepted this. Well, until last year brought one of the most shocking moments in Nintendo history. The revelation that the Dread project was still alive, and ready for an October 2021 release on Nintendo Switch. And not only was Metroid Dread real, it looked absolutely gorgeous. These environments are truly some of the most incredible I've ever explored in a 2D game. People scoff at me a lot when I say this, but as of right now, I think Metroid Dread is the best looking game on Switch. And I really don't think this is the fanboy in me talking. It's a 2D game, sure, well, 3D graphics on a 2D plane, but regardless, there's just something about the art style. The metallic sheen on everything, the detailed backgrounds and atmospheric lighting, the buttery smooth animations. Maybe it's just something personal to me and my taste, but I'd be lying to myself if I didn't say this was the best looking game on the platform. Let me know in the comments if that's a crazy opinion, because sometimes I feel like I'm on an island with this one. The big new gameplay hook in Metroid Dread is the introduction of the Emmy robots. I was pretty lukewarm on these guys at first. First of all, they feel a little bit soulless, don't they? Faceless, voiceless, kinda generic looking. Plus, they would bring a stealth element to Metroid, a concept I was pretty unsure about at the time. I don't necessarily dislike chase scenes or stealth sections, but in a Metroid game, there was nothing wrong with the earlier games. I just wanted them to leave my Metroid alone. But it wouldn't be Nintendo if they weren't always creating new and exciting ways to play, so I had to accept it. And thankfully, I warmed up to the Emmy sections quickly. I actually think they offer a nice change of pace. They provide short, infrequent interruptions to world exploration, kind of reminding me of the SAX chase scenes from Fusion. After dealing with them dozens of times at this point, my intuition was correct. The Emmy are soulless, but soulless in the best possible way. They are machines built solely to hunt and kill. They don't have a single ounce of character or humanity, but that heightens the feeling of, for lack of a better term, dread during each encounter. And the quirky alien chirps and odd music in the Emmy zones make that all the more vivid. And once an enemy is defeated, the zone it inhabited becomes safe to explore. So my worry about the chase scenes being intrusive to exploration were pretty much in vain. Developer Mercury Steam also included some of the changes pioneered in their previous title, Samus Returns. For example, Dread features quick travel via teleportals, only this time they allowed transport strictly between two color-coded stations. Also, the melee counter, another new addition from Samus Returns, makes a comeback in Dread, and I think this is a perfect addition to this modern-age home console Metroid. Successfully performing a counter leads to many of the game's big, flashy action cutscenes. Finishing off Kraid is one of many amazing cinematic moments, and of course the final phase of Ravenbeak was adrenaline pumping, a moment of excitement that I don't think I've had matched in a video game since. It wouldn't really be Metroid 5 without new power-ups too, although I actually don't think Dread did anything crazy innovative in this regard. What it did do, however, is integrate new powers seamlessly alongside many of the time-tested classics. The Spider Magnet is obtained early and allows Samus more vertical mobility before the space jump and grapple really become a factor. Flash Shift is just a quick dash forward, but it's amazing how such a simple power can become such an impactful movement tool, as it's used to great effect in both combat and overworld puzzle solving. And then there are the Storm Missiles, which are probably used the most sparingly, which makes them a bit forgettable, but in the right situations, these are a fun tool, the most memorable use case for them being one of my favorite bosses, the fight with Experiment Z57. And now that all this time has passed, I can mention, Metroid Dread even had some post-launch support. 2 major updates were released. The first adding Dread Mode, a hardcore difficulty setting in which even a single hit on Samus results in a game over. And of course, the Boss Rush update, complete with 3 types of boss battle marathon challenges. I'm addicted to 2D action bosses. Fights like these are absolutely some of my favorite things to do in video games, so it's no surprise I love this update. I could sit there and play Survival Rush all day, it's bad. Adding modes like this is an amazing replayability booster for an already highly replayable game. So even if we have to wait a while for the next 2D Metroid, I think I can speak for most fans in saying we're satisfied for the time being. Sitting here today, I don't think I can truly say Metroid Dread was worth the wait, simply because the wait was so ridiculously long. But irrespective of the wait time or the game's title, it remains a great game that I have spent and will spend a lot of time playing. Look, sometimes reality is stranger than fiction, and sometimes that ends up for the better. Last year, I sat and watched Paul George hand Doug Bowser an award for Best Action Adventure Game of the Year, Metroid Dread. I said it at the beginning and I'll say it now. Try telling me that a couple years ago. And while all the awards and praise are well deserved, since Dread is a fantastic game, I can't help but think that all of this critical acclaim is also part of a warm welcome back to a video game franchise that was so dearly missed, and hopefully won't go missing again.